Today you're going to be working on investigation number 4, which is found on page 213 of your text. Now, investigation number 4 concerns data collections and surveys. And what I'm going to do is just go over some terminology with you, and then, of course, you can work through the investigation on your own. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, let's go through some terminology. We're talking about the study of statistics. Now, statistics is a branch of mathematics, and the word statistics, or the study of statistics, involves the science of gathering and organizing data Now, remember that data is just information. So that's what I mean by data. So the science of gathering and organizing data in such a way that we can draw conclusions. From the data. Statistics have become quite popular in recent years. And so in mathematics, we study statistics because a good portion of the time, the data that you gather and organize is mathematical. That is, it's numbers. So that's why we're studying this particular branch of mathematics, which is called statistics. Now, when you have data, data can come in one of two forms. Data will either be what we call quantitative data. So quantitative, I was about to misspell that. That should be an I. Or data can be qualitative. Now, the word quantitative comes from our word for quantity, and quantity indicates amounts. So this is data that comes in numbers. For example, you might have the population of a city, which would be a numerical data technique. Or maybe the number of items in a store. These would be numbers, and we would consider them quantitative data. Now, qualitative data comes in categories. So it's not going to be numerical. And qualitative data would be something like a month in which somebody is born, or a favorite flavor of something. And we call this qualitative data. So quantitative data is data which comes in numbers and indicates a quantity. Qualitative data is data which comes in two categories, such as months or a favorite flavor. Okay, now let's talk about a couple of other different vocabulary terms. When you take a survey, you're asking questions from people so that they can indicate responses. Maybe you're surveying about your favorite type of soda, or maybe a favorite color. And you can take a survey in which you ask people to answer questions. Well, you have two different types of surveys. You have, first of all, the closed option survey. This is basically a multiple choice survey. This is where you only give your respondents, or the people that are responding to the survey, a limited number of choices. So choices are limited. Maybe you ask them to choose A, B, C, or D. Now, the second type of survey is what we call an open option survey. On an open option survey, you do not limit choices. So choices are not limited. And you allow your respondents to the survey to have freedom in their response. So respondents are free to make any kind of response that they want to. Their choices are not limited. Now, when you're taking a survey, you're going to survey a specific population. So the population that you survey is the target group of the survey. Now, depending on the size of the population, sometimes you can survey the entire population. However, sometimes the population is so large that you cannot possibly survey all of them. For instance, if you were wanting to survey teenagers in the United States, that would be a population that would be too large to survey. So what you would instead do is you would survey a sample of the population. And a sample of the population, that is a small part of the population. Now, when statisticians are creating surveys and when they survey a sample, what they want to do is they want to find a representative sample. This is the best type of sample to have. And whenever you read a poll that says that so many percentage are going to vote for this candidate versus this candidate in election, what the pollsters or the people taking the poll have done, people taking the survey, is they have found a representative sample. And what that means is that they have found a sample that has the characteristics of the entire sample. So we're going to say that the characteristics of the sample should be similar to those of the entire population. An example of this would be something like this. Let's say that your target group was teenagers. Well, in the United States, about 50% of the teenagers are going to be boys and 50% are going to be girls. So when you created a sample, you would want to create a sample that was 50% boys and 50% girls. Now, that would be part of finding a representative sample. Now, that's not all that would go into finding a representative sample, but it would be part of it. So you would want to look at these. Let's say, for instance, that a certain percentage of the sample would, or a certain percentage of the population would claim a certain religion. Then you would want that same percentage in the sample to be claiming the same religion. So you want to be careful when you choose the sample that the characteristics of the sample should be similar to those of the entire population. And we call this a representative sample. Now also when you're surveying, questions should be worded in such a way so that you avoid introducing bias into the survey. So we want to avoid bias. So it's not something that you want. When a survey is biased, the people surveyed might be influenced to give certain answers over other possible answers. So when you're writing a survey, you must be careful not to word your questions in such a way that the people that you're surveying are influenced to give a certain answer. You want people to choose the answer that they believe is the right answer or the choice that they like without feeling any type of pressure, any type of influence from the person that has written the survey. So bias is something that you want to avoid. You know, bias in surveys is one of the most typical problems of surveys today. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when you see a poll number out, let's say for an election, And you'll say, well, 41% of the candidates are the people are going to vote for this candidate versus this other candidate. Well, a lot of times what I'll ask is, I would like to see the questions that were asked, because many times bias is introduced into the questions, which forces a person to choose one candidate over another when that might not really be the candidate that they would choose if they were just simply asked, which candidate would you vote for? So you have to be careful that when you're reading a survey, that you know the question that was asked, because you want to make sure that that question didn't have any bias in it, which might have influenced the survey results. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy your math, enjoy this investigation, and I'll see you tomorrow.